Hey, welcome back to the Man Cave Workshop. Right, as you see here, we've got this Roberts R707 case here. It's just the case only. I have got another one of these, but the case isn't in as good condition as this. And this one has like a gold trim on it. So it's quite a desirable case. It's the it hasn't got a hole for a adapter, so it's a battery only case. And this is how I got it. Again, it was purchased off the internet, and I got it cheap because if you look in this corner here, there's quite a big chip out of the end cheek. So I'm going to have a go at repairing this. As you can see, I've already got a piece of tape on the bottom because this piping that goes round, I've already started to have a look at it. And it's held in by two little nails like this. So I've just pulled one of the nails out to just move that piping out of the way, and we'll pull this bottom gold trim off. I've had it off once, so it should come off fairly easy now. So there's the trim off. We'll put that on one side somewhere safe, and what we'll do, we'll tape this trim, this piping, out of the way, and have a closer look at this chip here. See, it's quite bad. What I've done already is started to cut out a slither of wood. Now I know this is a lot lighter, it's pine, but it's a lot easier to work with, and hopefully if this turns out okay, what we can do is stain that to match. So it's quite a lot of close-up work on this one, and if you look now, I've sort of cut that. Tell you what I'll do, I'll try and get the camera closer, but sometimes it flips the it actually flips the whole picture round. The way I'm looking through this camera, it looks sort of in focus. So I'm just going to hold that up, offer it up like that, and see how it's sitting. The idea would be to clamp that in place, and it's a lot bigger than the actual chip. It's difficult to get the camera angle right for you. And then sand it all down so it's nice and smooth, and then stain this. So there's where I'm up to. What I'm doing is keep sanding this to try and get it to a perfect match, obviously to marry up okay, and then we'll chop this excess off and have a go at sanding it down. Okay, I'm going to pause now and carry on sanding and working this to fit this chip, and then we'll glue it up and clamp it. So here we go, I've got a clamp ready. I've got piece of wood behind the set here to protect the Rexine on the back when I clamp it. I'm just going to clamp this little piece direct with the clamp. See if I can get a little bit more close up for you. Hear the spring going on the camera arm. Right, so that's all cut to fit. What I'm going to do now is just turn that over so I know which side to glue, and we get some Gorilla Glue just on a brush, and obviously the camera is in my way, so you could probably see better than I can at what I'm doing. Try and get a nice even thin layer. We're going to get some squeeze out anyway, I imagine, and then that's going to go that way, so I'm just going to get the glue on this piece as well. Saying again, it's because I'm concentrating. When says again, when you're using this sort of Gorilla Glue and stuff, it's very tempting to rush. You have actually got a depending on the temperature and the dryness of the air you're working in, you've got longer than you think before it actually goes off. So there we go, that's that. I'm going to turn this round now and offer it up. And then just slide it in place. And I think what I'm going to have to do now is to pause the camera while I get this clamp on, because the camera's actually in the way, and then we'll have a look at it when it's clamped up. Okay, and I should have apologised for the fan noise in the background. I've got the heater on. It's a fan heater in the man cave because it's pretty cold at the moment. Right, I think I've got that clamped up as best I can. We got plenty of squeeze out, and it all looks pretty much lined up. Now you'll notice that there's another piece of tape on there, because when I was applying the clamp, what I found was happening was the piece we're putting in was moving that way. So I taped it in place first and then clamped it. So I'm going to leave that overnight now to set, and see what we've got in the morning, which will be just in a second for you guys watching this. Okay, so it's been clamped up overnight, and as you can see, it's glued in really well. Managed to get all the squeeze out glue off. Well, that's matching up fairly well now. I've got the camera as close as I can get it without it going out of focus. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to get this is an extremely sharp chisel, and I'm just going to start gently. I'm going to have to do all this by hand. I'm just going to start gently taking this block we've put on down. Now, this is going to take a while, but it's better to do it this way. And then when I've got it close with this chisel, what I shall do then is get some sandpaper on it and sand it down and get it all nice and smooth. So you get the idea what I'm doing. It's like whittling. It takes time and patience. I'll be turning the set round this way and that way to get it down to the right contour we want. So I'm sure you don't want to watch me for half an hour or so getting this down flat. You can see how much I've got to go. So I'll pause the camera now, and until I get down to the point where I think it's ready for the sandpaper. So with the chisel, I've got it quite close. You can see it's still rough, and you can see it's still proud slightly. And what I'm going to do now, before going too far with the chisel, is to use just got this little block and some sandpaper, and I'm doing all this under a magnifier when I'm off camera. I'm just going to start sanding it now to match up, and we'll get it as close a match as we can. You notice I've got a soft towel behind it as well, because moving the case around, I didn't want to. You can concentrate so much on doing this that the other side of the case gets damaged while you're doing it, which I didn't want to happen anyway, which we don't want to happen. So I'm going to work my way through doing this until we get it as close as we can. Looking under there is a tiny gap. That closer, you'll be able to see it. What I might have to do is fill that little gap in afterwards. Okay, I'll pause the camera again and get on with the sanding, then we'll have another look at look at how far we've got. Okay, so I'm just doing some handheld. As you, the light's probably not right, but you might be able to see that we are getting. Focus isn't right, is it? Let me get a magnifier, see if that helps. Let's see, it's very difficult to get the light right. We are getting closer. It's still not quite right at the very end on the corner, and there is a tiny gap still. Let's just see under here. It is tiny. I mean, to the naked eye, when you look at it, you ain't. It's going to be fine, but when you get really close. You see that gap there? Not happy about that. We'll see what it looks like when the piping's on. I mean, you know that piping's only about 4 mil, 3 or 4 mil, so you can imagine how small that gap is in real life. It's literally a hair's gap, but it's starting to feel better. It still feels like it's a little bit raised, very slightly. I mean, it marries up to the joints very well. So I'm going to carry on and get this perfect. It's probably 20 minutes, half an hour's work with the chisel and the sandpaper to get it this far. So onwards and upwards, we'll carry on. Okay, so I've been carrying on. I'm sorry about the fan in the background again. And I've got it pretty much very close. It's not quite perfect yet. You can still feel it. It's a hair off. You know, it just needs a little bit more sanding. But I got to the point where, you know, I've been sanding it for quite a long time now, and you start to lose concentration because you're doing the same job. So I thought I'd take a break, and in the meantime, I've got this is the piece of wood that this piece is off. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to test some dye on it. And I imagine that this is going to be really well out. It's going to be too red, this stuff I've got here. But I'm just going to put a little bit on to see how it dries and matches up. Because I can always sort of add, like an artist would mix on an easel, I can always add colour to it. I'm going to practice on this piece first, before we put any dye on the actual bit. As you can see, that's too light and too red. Let's get it really in shot. But it's not right, but it's close, and we can work with that and get a perfect colour match. So for now, I've gone down to sanding, literally not with the block of wood now, just by hand to get a really good feel for the contour. And this corner's tricky to do. You've got to follow. I've been looking at the other end, the way it's contoured around there, and trying to match it best I can. Say we've still got that little gap underneath. The more I've sanded though, the less apparent that tiny little gap is. And like I say, we're not too far off now. And when this is back in place, it does tie everything in. So I'm going to concentrate more on getting this colour right. It's not that far off, but it does need some work. Okay, silly me, nearly forgot to press record again. So as you can see, I put some of the lighter stuff on that's a bit too red already. I'm just going to put more on now. And what we're going to do, you can see that's really not the right colour. But what I'm going to do now is, over here I've got some black. I'm just going to start feathering that in. and hopefully get it close so it does actually blend in. You know, never going to get this perfect, and I was thinking of what I would ask if I was watching this video. I would ask, why didn't you use a piece of teak like this as the splinter? One, I haven't got one. Two, I haven't got a bad enough radio to sacrifice for it. Three, I've never done this before, and as an afterthought, well, you can see this method isn't doing too bad, but I would think it would be easier, in all honesty, to use a piece of teak which would, you know, the right colour. So, like I said, I'm going to feather it, well, you can see what I'm doing. I'm feathering it in, and now I'm getting to the point where I'm actually wiping the colour off. So I'm just going to do a tiny bit more now, and then leave it to dry. It is not perfect. Definitely not perfect yet. So I'll leave it like that, let that one dry, and come back and have another go at it. Let me lift it up so you can see though. We can see it's starting to blend in. So that's the first coat. You've seen what I've done. I've just put some of the red. Now that area there is where I decided to stop, because I'm actually starting to lift. See, touching it again. Actually lifting the black off. Let's just have another go. So I've not done this before. And I do think it's time to stop. Let that dry and see how we get on with the next coat. Right, okay, so we darkened it up a little bit more. And as you can see, it does blend in quite well. If I try and get it in the worst light, you can see, I find it around here where my thumb is, you can see the join very slightly, and we have got that little tiny piece at the bottom there that's really small. Let's just rest the piping back into position a little bit. Perhaps the lighting's right to see the join there. So you get the idea what it's going to look like when the piping's back on, and we've got the piece of trim for here. I am considering giving it just a very light coat of Danish oil, not to make it shiny, because these ends are really good, just to blend it in a little bit more. One coat of Danish oil won't make it shiny. It's when you put 3 or 4 on that it becomes really shiny. I don't want to do that in this case. So this is how it came, just an empty case off eBay with a chip in it. We'll put this on one side now, and in the next video we'll have a look at the radio that's going in it, that the case for the other radio isn't in as good a condition as this one. And as always, thanks for joining, and be good to each other. Catch you in the next one, guys.